We're going to call this meeting to order, and the first thing I would ask is for approval of the agenda, and the only thing I'd ask is we have some flexibility because the commissioner had last-second change today. So we're going to accommodate her, go ahead and hear what she had to say. So is there a motion for approval in a second?
Move to approve the agenda for the June 15, 2021 meeting.
Okay, so.
Second.
Moved by,
No, I haven't.
got that? Any discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Okay, I would like to point out, and Ken can correct me if we need to, but Mr. Cubulus and Ms. Aho, they cannot vote since they're attending remotely, but Mr. Salva, you can go ahead and vote.
That's correct.
During today. So that is approved. I'm going to hold off on chair's comments. Ken, you want to follow up? I know there's not any issues on attendance report, but let's do attendance report. Also an update on commission vacancy.
And I see there's a caller here.
Is that?
It's odd that it's the growth management phone number.
Oh.
So, we can see who that is. I don't know who that is. But I'm gonna bring them in.
Because I just see, if we just added someone remotely, would you please identify yourself? It shows that the phone is muted.
Yeah, and I'm asking him to unmute and they're not doing it. But I don't see any other public. I guess we should.
Want to do the announcement at the bottom more towards the start?
Should we call the roll just as a formality or just we know we have a quorum of at least 6. We have 9 here in person.
Right. So
2 remote.
We can see everyone here. We can see Mr. Cubulus, Ms. Ho on the screen, so I think we got 11 of 11 accounted for.
Okay. And again, a formality, but the information at the bottom of the agenda about the public participation.
Right, that's what I was asking if you wanted to.
Okay.
So if the public can still participate remotely, and when appropriate, we'll allow for public comments related to motions, or other areas, and at the conclusion of the meeting, we'll also ask for any other public comment.
And as of now, I see the one, looks like a growth management phone number, but no other public. And I asked that phone to unmute, but I don't see that they've done that, so.
Okay, we'll just keep watching that, and if we could move on, I know the attendance report would be short, but that and also vacancies on.
Right, so for the attendance report, currently everyone's in compliance, and the requirement now, if you have your packet there, the attendance, any member whose attendance is less than 50% of the last 6 consecutive meetings shall automatically be removed. This is sort of a return to the previous attendance policy. It was revised for a while, but there's no one that's near that. A couple of people, 3 people have 5 or 6 meetings attended. So by this, you could attend at least 3 of the last 6 and be in compliance. But if you miss more than 3, if you have 4 absences, that's the automatic removal. So everyone's okay with that right now.
Okay. Okay, and then you wanna talk about the vacancy, you continue to advertise, if I'm understanding correctly, but no applicants.
Right, so there's a vacancy that was Mr. Rushing's position, the Farm Bureau position that's vacant, so that's being advertised. We have not had an applicant that qualifies for that. We have had 2 applicants now that have applied for the committee, but we verified they didn't have the Farm Bureau affiliation. The other one just applied this morning, so we haven't talked to them yet. But from their application, I didn't see that they had that. We'll follow up with them.
Okay, and what, Cindy?
I was just gonna say, hopefully, we have a Farm Bureau board member who I talked to this morning, and I think he's applied, so hopefully
Oh,
Jim.
he has applied.
Well, he said he was going to, but I don't know if he has or not. But he serves on the Alachua County Farm Bureau, actually on the board, and he's Jim, did I say Fleming, sorry, wrong Jim Fleming, and he owns Tropic Traditions Nurseries on Newberry Road, so. He's interested, so
Okay.
I think they will get one. When I saw the email today, I prodded him along.
The other thing, since we're in this section, and we'll just be quick on this, remember, we're going to take a break, after today's meeting until September. So when we come back for the September meeting, we'll be approaching the, end of terms or potential end of terms for some people. And, my understanding, Ken and I had a discussion, is that the application process for terms ending in 2021 will begin, probably at the end of this month. There's like a 90-day period or something for people to submit applications. So you don't have to wait until September to do that. So if you're interested, we have one member, I believe, is that correct, Ken?
Yes.
That, term expires in 2021.
Yep.
And I'm assuming that member knows who it is, but Candace, if you have any interest in, continuing with it, you'll need to apply again, and, you can start that process pretty soon. So you'll want to keep an eye on that. But I believe that's the only term that expires in 2021.
Correct.
Okay? The other thing, we all should take a second, and, obviously, there's one new person in a new position for that meeting, and Ken's taken over as the lead county, staff person along with Regina for staffing this committee. So appreciate the work those two still put in, and Ken and I, talk regularly, so, anyway, I appreciate the effort he's doing, look forward to working with you on that. So, let's move on to approval of the minutes from May. Has everyone had a chance to review them?
I move approval of the May 18th, 2021 minutes as presented.
Okay, moved by Mr. Hall, seconded by Ms. Chance. Any discussion? If not, we'll go ahead and vote. All those in favor of approval signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed signify by the same sign. That motion passes.
So I don't see Commissioner Alford has joined yet.
Neither do I. So I hate getting real involved in something real quick. Let's see if we can follow something up, real quick, that we need to cover today. And I'm not sure that we have anything that fits in that, category. Is there any generic committee member comments that somebody wants to make now at all?
Generic, just like anything.
Yes.
Oh, okay, I was just gonna suggest probably, I don't know how everybody feel about the time, or is this a good time, apart from 4 o'clock, fit everybody's schedule. So that was something I wanted to kind of ask everybody about, how everybody.
Any input from people on times? Mr. Baines, do you have something in particular, or?
No, I was just, wondering if 5 o'clock would be too late for you.
5 o'clock makes traffic really difficult.
Yeah. So,
And I'm already driving to the east side of town. It seems to me, especially since we're gonna, by September, be,
Could be at our location in Newberry.
yeah,
location moving to Newberry.
yeah.
When it's available, it's available for us.
Is that something that we definitely decided upon?
I think it's just history that we've always met at our extension office, 'cause it's a public building and rule issues, but that's up to,
I throw
Would-
something out for consideration, since we're talking about locations. Would it be possible to maybe rotate locations, because it makes it really hard for the folks who live, like, I know Candace lives on the east side of the county, I live on the east side of the county, you live on the east side of the county. Yeah, I realize everybody has to come a certain distance, but when you move out to Newberry, it's gonna be difficult. So, I mean, I don't know if some community, maybe the city of Hawthorne would have a room that we could use periodically and just rotate locations, or even a more centrally located. I'm throwing it out there for people to think about. So,
Well, and we have talked about this before when we were trying to figure out what we were gonna do in the interim. And, we talked about ideas of, rotating a couple of places. We spent some time, and Mr. Hall spent a lot of time trying to see if something would work out, more towards Alachua. There's obviously a lot of the committees that meet downtown, that's been an issue with the parking. I mean, I think, personally, I would be receptive if we could find it. I think if we could figure out some way, if we find it and people want to do it, if we could make it consistent, so we're not, hopping around every other month or something like that, I think it might make a little bit more sense if we did something that way. So, obviously, I think that's something we brought up in our discussion some last year. The other thing is, and I guess all county-owned facilities are receptive to staying open past 5?
I don't know, I mean, it depends on the staffing. Like, for example, this place is, because we were able to get the staff that can come and close it up after 5, but it might depend on the particular building.
I just know, like, for me, like the land, I'm on the land conservative board, and we meet usually around at 6 o'clock, and usually that's kind of a good time for everybody. I know that might be too late for you guys, but usually, that probably work, or there's no, opportunity for others to come along to the part, but, it was just something I was just when I just kind of see, part-time, I guess, with location, trying to narrow something down. I was just on some time out there to you.
Oh, okay, can we put that on for future agenda? And once we, have our September meeting out at the new county and, equestrian center, we can bring that back up and see what people feel. And first of all, everybody knows where that location is, out west of Jonesville, but before you get to Newberry on the right-hand side of the road.
Before you get to Jonesville.
No, it's after you go through Jonesville, but before you get to Newberry, heading.
Wow, I mean, I can Google it, but
So, well, you'll see the big equestrian center, the office is behind that a little bit to the side. It's not really behind it, but it's not right up to the road. You can't hardly miss the big equestrian center.
the old Canterbury Showground.
the north side.
Come out on where the horses is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Okay, those are small buildings, look like a tax collector.
not anymore.
Jerry,
Cindy
you know,
said big
Mr. Alford is logged in now.
Yes, I saw that. So we're gonna put that on the agenda for September when we bring it up, if we wanna look at alternative locations and everything like that. And, we're gonna go ahead with our agenda because I know our schedule is somewhat tight, but we have Commissioner, Mary Alford on with us today. And I hope I don't goof up her name because I grew up in Indiana and lived there for 30 years, and they had a famous basketball player who broke the state records for scoring and went to IU, and his name was spelled the same way, and he pronounced it, Alford. And, he went on to win a national championship with Indiana University and then coached at UCLA for a while and stuff like that, and somehow that's ingrained in my brain. But we're very, glad to have Commissioner Alford with us today. I'm just gonna give you a brief introduction, if that's okay, Commissioner. Most of you should be aware she was just elected, last year. So she's been in office now technically for about 6 months, I believe, if I'm counting correctly. And I've had the opportunity through training I still do with the Association of Counties, and, also she was on a training I did part of for University of Florida related to water issues in the Suwannee River Water Management Basin. And I can say she's been engaged in both those programs and is a frequent participant. And I want to give kudos to the Alachua County commissioners in general, because I've been working with the association for over 30 years, and Alachua County commissioners have heavily participated in that, and I think it helps some of the people get up to speed on jobs. Commissioner Alford is a Florida native, I believe several generations in Florida. She grew up, it sounds like maybe in a sort of a rural area. She familiar with animals and gardening and fruit trees and different things like that. She's had an interesting career. She was one of 9 children, is that right?
Correct, yeah.
One of 9 children, so she understands on cooperation and getting along, obviously. She has 4 children of her own, I believe. She's worked at a variety of different things. She worked at Shands for a while. She's obviously an entrepreneur, started her own company, and she's experienced both the upsides and the success of a successful company and one that wasn't maybe successful, but still learned from that process. And she's interested in all the issues facing Alachua County. She sometime found time while all that was going on to go to school at Santa Fe, got a degree in environmental engineering, and I believe a master's degree in an engineering area as well. And she's also a professionally licensed engineer in the state of Florida, now has a successful company in Gainesville. So we appreciate you being here, Commissioner Alford, and we look forward to hearing a few comments from you and maybe providing some questions at the end.
Thank you so much. I actually had planned to talk to you guys about what I want to see accomplished from the Rural Concerns Committee, but I would rather do that in person. I am very sorry that I couldn't be there in person today. My mother got put into hospice yesterday and is not doing very well. And pardon?
Sorry to hear that.
Yeah, and it's tough, you know, we're a very, very close family and all my siblings are here. And on top of that, I'm also presenting a resolution at the National Association of Counties. And we had a meeting about that today. And that's actually kind of what I would like to talk about today, and then come back maybe next month if you'll let me, and sit with you guys, get to know all of you and hear your concerns. It's not about me telling you what my concerns are. You know, a good part of this is me hearing from you guys what your concerns are. So I want to talk to you about what I'm going to be talking about with the National Association of Counties. And first I want to verify everybody can hear me okay. Is my coming through? Strong
Yeah.
and clear. Okay, great. So, as you know, I was elected to office about 6 months ago, so I am relatively new at this. But if you followed my campaign at all, you will know that I ran on, one of the things that I ran on was infrastructure. So I'm very concerned about roads. And I also could plan for preparing for climate disruption and hardening our current infrastructure. And that and road maintenance and road replacement and road repair seemed to be very important to all the residents in the county. And I guess it was so because I got elected. However, once I got into office, I was very disappointed to realize that it's not as simple as just reallocating funding to roads. The 750 miles of roads that the county maintains require something like $600 million to bring into full repair. And our budget is a paltry $3 million a year. So even if we were to take all of the federal dollars that we've been given and put them towards roads, we would hardly be able to accomplish anything like what we need. In addition, many of the municipalities in our county are struggling from lack of broadband, the need for new and upgraded water and wastewater infrastructure, crumbling schools, and funding for their own transportation projects. So I've been looking for solutions to all of that. And a citizen shared information with me about something called the National Infrastructure Bank. And I was interested about it, but I became really interested after I listened to the American Society of Civil Engineers report on infrastructure. I don't know if any of you guys have seen this, but across the board, when the civil engineers looked at our infrastructure, they gave us a C- across the country. And that's pretty dismal. That's everything from our airports to our bridges to our roads, to our electrification of our grid, and we've seen the problems of that already this year. All the parts of our infrastructure, a C-. And that puts us way below most other countries, and it's affecting our ability to be competitive on the world market. So since that time, I looked a lot more closely at the National Infrastructure Bank. And I've been working locally to get support for this. And you might wonder why a little county commissioner is working on a big national endeavor. Well, it just got introduced into Congress, and we need to get the attention of our, our legislators up in DC so that they can support this. It's a nonpartisan bill. We all need roads. We all need infrastructure. It's not Democrats, not Republican. It's nonpartisan. And so I worked with a local citizen to write a local resolution of support for our county. We added a lot of details for educational reasons. We included history and facts and figures. And so we made it specifically to reflect the needs and values of the Alachua County Commission. And I presented it to the commission, and it was passed unanimously. The National Association of Counties passed it unanimously last year. And I'm introducing it in DC in a few weeks, and they expect it to pass unanimously again because all the counties in the whole country recognize we have a problem. So I'm also presenting this as a resolution to the Regional Planning Council next week. I've sat on the Regional Planning Council now for 6 months, and that includes, in case you don't know, 12 counties, including 3 counties on the coast. All of them are also concerned about infrastructure. So I expect the Regional Planning Council to also pass this resolution. So if any of you are involved in your local if you're involved in any of the small municipalities around the county, I've talked to most of your mayors, and I've encouraged them to pass a local resolution of support. Once again, why that's important is because we need to get that in front of our congressman or congresswoman and get their attention so that they will support this and they understand that it's important. Now, what is the National Infrastructure Bank? If you look back in history, George Washington and Alexander Hamilton created the National Infrastructure Bank after the Revolutionary War, and that's how we built the first roads and bridges in our nation. Again, after the Civil War, Lincoln started a national infrastructure bank to repair the damage done during the Civil War. And during the Great Depression after World War I, we had a national infrastructure bank that created roads and projects all across the United States. In every one of those cases, the federal government, while they backed the bank, they did not put any money towards it. It was all provided by private business investment. So there was no impact to the federal deficit. And in fact, money went into the federal deficit, into the federal budget, not the deficit, because of the impact to the economy. This National Infrastructure Bank is expected to be backed by $5 trillion of private investment. And that money would be made available at very conservative, low rates to the smallest cities to the biggest region to do projects. And $5 trillion is about what the civil engineering folks have said would take to fix the infrastructure in our country. And it's getting a lot of support across the board. But like I said, we would like to get some support here. So I encourage you to go look that up. It's the NIBcoalition.com if you want to look it up on the internet. And if any of you are interested in finding out more, I can get you invited to Zoom meetings with some of the organizers up in DC, Virginia area. But this has been supported by states as from Alabama to Arizona to New Jersey and Kentucky. So if you want to research that, it's Florida needs to get on board because we have a lot of issues and a lot of work to do here. So if you have any questions about that, I know that's not what you expected me to talk about today, but I'm just taking advantage of the situation to share that information with you and to share my concern about our local infrastructure and what I'm doing to work on it. And I look forward to meeting with you in the future to talk about other things. So.
Okay, so if it's okay, I'll follow up and then maybe some others, because at the last meeting we had some folks come in who favored the Springs County concept here in Alachua County. And obviously roads come up. So right. One of the issues, and it piqued my interest, so after the meeting was over, I went back and I started grubbing for data on Florida and got the road data for by district in Florida, and I believe it was 219. But Alachua County has a huge amount of county roads that are basically not paved relative to other areas in the state.
Right.
And obviously there's a link between all this stuff and economic development and different things like that. And then the other issue, sort of thinking back, and I'm just doing this from a historical perspective, after World War II, and I wasn't around then, but I've done a lot of reading on that. That's where the interstate system was developed. That's where the bridges and overpasses and stuff like that. And that's all fine and dandy, except Alachua County happens to be a good example. We're sort of a tweener county in Florida. We're 270,000 or so on population. But we have, in this county, for example, 40% of the population, until we see the new census data, lives in unincorporated and rural areas. And so one of the issues are, Newberry Road's jammed up, Archer Road's jammed up, every road's jammed up, and yet, we sort of get some feedback from time to time that the rural folks say there's really nothing being done out there.
There's that.
So, that's the big perspective that I think people are going to have to keep in mind on that. We're going to, we'll get in contact with you, and maybe we can get you back for our September meeting and have you meet in person. It's interesting because roads, broadband, some of those things like that. They also deal with economic health and communities as well.
Absolutely, and that's why it's so important. And just for the record, the commission met to work on their priorities and their basically the philosophy that we want to go forward as we make new policy. And one of the main things that we're focusing on is equity, and that includes equity between the outlying areas and the city of Gainesville. So in our opinion, too much weight has been given to the number of trips each road has in terms of prioritizing it for funding. And so recognizing that the outlying areas, it's affecting people's property values. It's costing an average of $600 per person per car per year in repairs to cars by not having roads maintained. So all of those things together, make it so that we really need to focus on getting these outlying roads repaired just as much as the ones near town. And so, but $600 million is just outside of the realm of possibility, no matter what the budget is. And so finding some creative solutions for to be able to find matching funds or grants or these loans from the National Infrastructure Bank would be helpful.
Okay, I'm gonna ask if, I have one other thing I'd like to follow up with you on, so we just sort of get it on the agenda for when we invite you back. But I wanna open it up, anybody else who has want to ask Commissioner Alford a question or wanna make a comment? Larry, you gotta ask yours, that comes up all the time about, how the commissioners are elected in Alachua County.
Commissioner Alford, thank you for your comments, and I appreciate the concerns you have for the infrastructure, particularly the rural roads in the county. I live in Alachua, in the city of Alachua limits, but not in downtown Alachua. But in my job, I'm out in the county a bit, and I certainly agree. Our roads, the paved roads, let alone the dirt roads, are in terrible condition. One of the things that I think about as I look at the way funds are allocated by the county and the lack of funding apparent to me that's being provided for road maintenance is I believe that more of our county funds could be better allocated than they currently are. While all of the social programs, the recreational programs, the conservation programs are important, I think there needs to be a balance between those fundings and the economic impact that infrastructure has on our county. I know that, for example, we had a report that the county is now spending about $1.3 to $1.4 million to hire people to maintain the right-of-way, mow, et cetera, that used to be provided at a very minimal cost by inmate labor. I understand that was a social, maybe political issue. I had asked that that be addressed again by the county. I don't know that that's been done, but I just would like to see more balance between infrastructure funding, which develops the economy of the county and helps people get jobs, brings more industry, and brings more value, property values, which increases the tax base. So those are my comments.
Well, can I answer that? Is that all right? Okay, so as you probably know, a lot of those recreation dollars come from a 1/2-cent sales tax called the Wild Spaces Public Places sales tax. And you're going to be hearing more about, that passed with great popularity. And I know we met with the city of Alachua last night, and they were very pleased at how that tax has allowed them to do various projects, upgrading their parks and providing amenities to the city. However, they shared your concern again about infrastructure, and what we are proposing to go on the ballot is in 2022 is a change to that Wild Spaces Public Places 1/2-cent sales tax. as you know, also probably, any road sales taxes have not been popular. That none of them have passed when brought to the voters. So what we're proposing to do is combine an infrastructure roads half-cent sales tax with the wild spaces public places, which is a very popular program, and put them together into one sales tax. And then we can divide that to have funding both for roads and for the very popular other amenities that we've been providing the county. And we're hoping by playing that little trick that we can get some roads funding. I don't know how you feel about that, but we're going to try it, see if it works. But first, we're polling all of Alachua County, so you'll probably, I don't think they're talking to every citizen, but we are talking to citizens across the entire geographic area of the county. So some of you will likely get that poll, and we'll find out, whether you think that's a great idea or not. But I think it's one way to get that road tax in place. In terms of the other things that you're concerned about, how we allocate our funding, the very first budget that I will be involved in, you'll see this summer and in September, and hopefully you will see more money go towards roads, because that is something that I've prioritized, and I've let staff know that that's something that I expect to see on the current budget. So, and a lot of the other commissioners feel the same way. I can't say all of them.
I think this is Dwayne Bain. And I just have like two comments. One of them, I think that it might not be a good idea because the wild spaces might get turned down because people, like you said, the roadways are not that popular. I think it's more of the allocations of where the funding goes for the roads while it's being voted down. Usually it doesn't go in the areas that people, think it's going to go, often goes into the more popular areas. And so that's one of the reasons that I think that it gets turned down. And another comment I wanted to make was with the road for 441 to Payne Ferry, like headed to, I guess, Marion County, that little overpass. I know this is something I'm just talking, but like a little overpass, like a little bridge to go there. We keep having problems with that road and with the water rising and lowering, and I know it was a big car pile up a few years ago. I think like an overpass would be something nice, even though I know, like you say, you're trying to find the funds just to do the regular county roads, but I think that would be something definitely beneficiary to the county.
I appreciate that comment. One thing that I've learned about 441, which is a state highway and actually not a county road, so the state is in charge of maintenance for that. But the last time they did major work on that highway, they allowed the contractor to save a lot of money by removing a foot of the height of the road. So when I talk about hardening our infrastructure, that's the kind of thing I'm talking about, is adding that foot back to 441 so that we don't have those flooding concerns in the future. I think that, I mean, they did a huge disservice to us when the state allowed the contractor to cut corners that way, and that's really sad. So I totally share your concern there. With respect to the infrastructure sales tax, I do believe that if we handle that tax the same way we handled wild spaces public places, by putting in place a group of citizens to identify all of the priorities and making sure there's representation from the outlying communities on those priority lists, just like we did when we allocated the other dollars, I think that we can get past some of those concerns about all of that money being directed towards Gainesville. So that's our goal. We need to have a conversation, a lot of conversation, a lot of communication about how this is going to work, just like we did with the wild spaces public places dollars.
I want to ask the people on this side of the room, anybody got a question?
I actually do have questions.
Okay.
Janet Hearn, in your discussions of improving the equity between the city of Gainesville and the outlying areas, are you talking about, does that include reallocating how the gas taxes are divided? Because several years ago, I listened to a county workshop where one of the county commissioners was very strongly pounding the table for putting most of the money in the city of Gainesville, because that's who used the road. I was just curious if that was part of your process.
Well, we do need to relook at that, right? Because where are most of the gas taxes collected? They're on 301, right? So they're on the areas that are Alachua, where people get off I-75 to gas up in Alachua. They're on 301 in Hawthorne, and they're at Waldo. That's where tons of gas tax dollars are collected. So if we kept gas tax dollars where they were collected, that's where that money would go. So we do need a reallocation of how we do the gas tax, and that's something that's being looked at right now. So I completely agree.
Yeah, James?
I have two things. This is James Longenecker. You mentioned hardening and climate change mitigation for, infrastructure in Alachua County. What areas, have you identified to be, like, of most importance, and what kind of hardening strategies have you thought of so far?
Well, right now, you know what, 441 was already mentioned, and while that is a state road, we have other county roads that are affected in a similar way by flooding. We expect there to be more flooding in the future, just like there has been in the past. And I know, for instance, I don't know if you're familiar, for instance, with the Lake Road that goes near Noonan's Lake. That was flooded for weeks a couple of years ago. My mother lives in eastern Alachua County, and she actually could not take a car down her road for about 3 weeks because it was just a river of water. There are other places around the county that need to have the roads raised and properly paved so that people can access their homes. And so emergency vehicles and police officers and all the other people that do the business in the county can get to where they need to go as well. I can't tell you that I can provide you with a list of all of those structures right now, but I probably could get with Ramon Gavaretti, and we could give you maybe not an entire list of what needs to be hardened, but a pretty decent one. It's not prioritized or anything like that, but the need is very obvious.
And thank you so much. And another question I have is, I deal with treated lumber a lot, like building boardwalks or outdoor furniture or, little sheds. And we're in Florida, and even though it's treated, it has to be replaced like every 4 years. I feel like roads are the same way, that we're gonna just have to continually dump money into our roads, and while we, eventually, we'll have more of a tax base to support more use of our roads. I'm wondering if, anything besides for electric scooters has been thought of with regard to alternative transportation countywide rather than just in the heart of the city?
That's actually a really good question and something that I'm working on. So when I talked to UF a few weeks ago, they told me that their last count, they now had over 400 employees that live in High Springs alone that are commuting into UF Shands area. 400 employees just from High Springs. I believe something like 60% of the households in Gilchrist County commute to Alachua County. As the prices of housing and other expenses rise in the city of Gainesville, we're seeing so many of our workforce housing folks moving to the outlying areas. And, if those are folks that are doing jobs for $15 to $20 an hour at Shands or at UF, then those folks are probably transportation challenged as well. Right. So creating a transportation network to get people into the biggest employer in all of Southeast United States, which a lot of people don't realize that Shands UF is that largest employer in the Southeast United States, non-government, not outside of the military, I think, then that that need becomes very apparent. So one of the things I've been talking to the regional planning council folks about is looking into actually reaching some transportation routes into some of the outlying counties and perhaps leveraging some of their potential transportation dollars to subsidize a route into Alachua County, Gainesville area. So I can't make any promises right now. We're also looking at creating a transportation loop around the county, or I'm looking at it. I can't say how many other people are, but those are priorities to me. You know, I've had family live in every tiny small town in this county from Waldo to Archer. So knowing what I know about how hard it is to sometimes get into town, how much time that takes. You know, my sister calculated she uses the equivalent of a month of vacation hours commuting into Gainesville. And so if she could sit on a bus and drink a cup of coffee and read her newspaper and go straight to her job every day, then that's just would be something she'd be very much interested in. And it would put $3,000 to $4,000 back in her family's pocket because they wouldn't have to have a second vehicle. So those are the kind of things I've been looking at with respect to transportation in the outlying areas. I can't make any promises. I'm investigating right now. I'm still new at this job, so, but I'm,
Thank you.
And I'm gonna ask, do, any of the online committee members have a issue, question they want to bring up to the commissioner?
I do.
Hold on just a second. So Candace or Chris, I'm not hearing from you. Ms.
Yeah,
Warren, we'll go.
sure, I'll have a, yes, sir. Thank you very much, Commissioner, I know you can only imagine how busy you are. So thank you for taking time to be with us. I live out in very rural Alachua County, about 2 miles down a sand road, a private sand road. And there's probably 6 or 8 other families out here in the woods with me. And I understand that there's no way that tax dollars should go to support my private road that I share easement with other people. But would there ever be any opportunity that maybe we could buy lime rock at cost or something like that from the road department or something? I don't think there's a good portion of the year that an emergency vehicle couldn't make it. In fact, I know I've dug out or pulled out a couple of squad cars over the years that have wandered out here and gotten stuck. So is there anything it could be? I don't want tax money to subsidize my private road, but if we could just at least get a little bit of lime rock or base or something that we could spread ourselves that we could buy maybe at a, you know, from the county or something like that.
you know, that's an interesting question. I'll be sure to ask about that, but I will tell you another solution that a few other neighborhoods have done, and that is they have approached the county, and all the neighbors need to, well, I think 80 to 90% of the neighbors need to agree. But what they do is they will create an improvement area, and then they would assess each of you a small amount on your property taxes every year, and then provide that maintenance as part of the county services. That way it's not put on the other taxpayers, but that way the cost is spread out equitably among all the people in your neighborhood. But I'll ask about if, you know, how that might work with just providing lime rock at cost. I think that's an excellent suggestion. I've got family that live down private dirt roads as well. And, you know, we rent equipment 3 or 4 times a year and work on the roads. And we've tried spreading our own lime rock too. And it's a job, but, you know, with the right equipment, you can do it.
Well, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Okay, Ms. Warner?
Yes, my name's Sandra Warner. If you're have no more discussion on roads, I have a different issue I'd like to introduce.
Can I just, before we get away, so we get it on the agenda next time, there are 2 other issues I want to bring up on roads real quick. One's Mr. Baines' issue. So there needs to be a huge amount of education. The general citizen in Alachua County does not understand that Newberry Road is a state road. And there's municipal roads, there's county roads, and there's state roads, and there's a federal highway that runs through here. They all have different funding sources, but when there's a pothole or there's a traffic backup, it comes to the county because it's a road in Alachua County. So you need a huge education campaign, I believe. The other thing is, I don't think, and it's good on all this federal stuff, I think that it might have some merit that you have to consider hammering some more on state legislators as well. Because the gas tax, for example, is a perfect example of something. It's not indexed to inflation. It's not indexed to fleet mileage. It's a flat cent rate.
Yep.
So if we did that on sales tax, we'd be broke too.
Right.
Okay, so there's some way, as we change the industry, the transportation industry, we have to account for that. And we haven't even thought what's going to happen when electric gets a lot bigger.
Well, actually, we have started talking about that. So I just got off the National Association of Counties Transportation Committee meeting call right before I started talking to you guys. And they're talking about how to tax electric vehicles. That was exactly a big part of one of their discussions. Here in Florida, I believe that they are looking at taxing mileage versus taxing gallons of gas. You know, the miles you put on your car on the road. I don't know how they would go about doing that, but it's that's one of the things they're looking at. So they do recognize it as a problem. And you're right. That's one of the reasons that our funding dollars for roads have gone down. That and how we've chosen to develop. So, you know, it's frustrating because I drive a hybrid and I appreciate that savings on gas. And I believe that Chair Cornell just bought his son's old used Tesla. So, you know, that's even putting less money into the gas tax. So it's, you know, and that's just the future going forward. So we have to figure that out. I agree. But it is being talked about.
I just wanted to get that out there so when we have a follow-up with you, we've got some topics that we can go on. And now I'll go back to Ms. Werner.
Okay. I have an issue with ag tourism permits on property in Alachua County. The permits are, the properties are being given agricultural status when they do not deserve it, which of course affects our taxes.
Yep.
The county is pointing their finger at the state's pointing their finger at the county. I'm in the middle, and I'm trying to get something done about this. I'm getting nowhere.
I'm confused about what, it seems like this is mostly an issue that needs to take place at the property appraiser's office. And so, you know, I served on the code enforcement board for a while before I ran for county commissioner. And I remember a code issue with a house that was built and they had gone in and clear cut a piece of property to put a $2 or $3 million house on it. And so, you know, they broke all these rules and they thought that just because they had a lot of money, they could do that. But what really caught my eye is that they showed before and after pictures of the property. And the property looked like sort of a bunch of abandoned fields. And but it was listed on the county tax appraiser's website as planted pine, and they were getting an agricultural exemption for that. And I tried to ask questions about that. And so I hear you on that. And so that is something that I talked to our new property appraiser about. And she said that she is looking to crack down as best she can on that kind of thing. In terms of large agricultural lands, that may be where the state gets involved. I don't know, but that's something I'm still getting educated on. So.
It's a 38-acre piece that is primarily in my concern at the
Yeah.
moment. And I'm not getting anywhere with the property appraiser's office or anybody else.
Well, if you send me an email, then I'll see what I can do to help.
Okay, you might want to talk to Mary Helen Wheeler.
I can't talk to her because if she's working with you on it, then that's fine. We can't do it together because of sunshine laws. So.
Yeah, commissioners can't, without public notice, they can't discuss a topic that may become.
Well, she's not working with me, but she's aware of it.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think you're correct, that, that issue is a property appraiser and a State Department of Revenue issue, which issues the guidelines to the property appraisers. We really appreciate your time.
I have a new topic.
Okay, just real quickly, because,
This is, Commissioner, it's Jean Chance. This is kind of post-COVID, so I'm not sure that it's not premature, but is the county assessing what have we learned that we could do better? Things like education, trying to do schools, joint, study groups between you and the school boards, for example. I think there's a lot that the county has had the opportunity anyway to learn to do a lot of different things better.
What things do you specifically think about when you think of what could have been improved?
Oh, I think in rural areas, for example, health issues,
Mm-hmm.
confusion over who could get any of the vaccines at all.
Right.
Really, you know, we were all dealing with things we've not experienced historically in this country before. But I wondered, will there be follow-up by Alachua County Commission, for example?
Oh, that's kind of been an ongoing discussion. And for instance, one of the major issues that was real obvious from the very beginning, from the school board and from the county, was the lack of broadband and the inability to reach out to large numbers of people in the rural areas all at one time.
Right.
And
that's been on our list of concerns.
yeah, and so I will tell you that we are getting the first half of the American Rescue Plan dollars right now, and I have been given a preliminary list by staff of what they are proposing that we do based on the priorities that the county Board of County Commissioners has set, and broadband is at the top of the list. So we are looking at what is the most expeditious way to get quality broadband out into the county, because communication was our biggest problem. And communication is highly dependent on having that ability to communicate. Nobody listens to local TV anymore, so that didn't work. Not many people listen to the radio. What everybody does is they get on the internet, and it's and it showed up in how public schools were managed and a lot of other things. So that's our number one priority, and the number one thing that we learned from COVID was that real need for quality broadband.
Great, thank you.
All right, Chairman Foster stepped out, so Larry Hall taking just for a moment. Any other questions or issues?
I just wanted to kind of, this is Dwayne again, just kind of piggyback on Mr. Hall's question about the, and I'll probably talk more about it when you do come in after September, of the, with the inmate contract and how, with the present contract that's going on now, how it's, affecting, the rural area in the county, that, we definitely not getting the service that we need out there as far as, with trimming and different things, with the animals, wild animals, a lot of stuff, been neglected. So that's something, like I said, I'll just discuss it when you do come, but that is something I think that should be brought up to the commissioners. And like you said, I don't know how they came up with the idea of not allowing them or stopping them from, I think the inmates kind of enjoyed it. It was, maybe we can find some kind of middle ground where they can get some type of, money taken off their, whatever fees they got or something. But I think it was great. But yeah, definitely suffering out there in the rural areas.
I appreciate that. I haven't, that happened on the previous commission, and we'll, I'm sure, be revisiting it, and I'll need to research what their reasons were behind the change to understand it better. But that's something I'll look into doing, and hopefully have a better answer for you when I come back in September.
Thank
Commissioner Alford, we're gonna let you go. We appreciate your time today, and we wish the best to you and your family during the difficult time that you're going through now as well. And we'll look forward to visiting with you in person, and if it works in September, that'll be great, and if not, we'll try October.
I imagine September is going to be just fine, depending on what day it is, because I am taking a real short vacation with my sister, but other than that. But anyway,
Well,
thank you.
Is it September, a month of a busy budget workshops before the start of the fiscal year?
Yeah, but it was the only time my sister had, so it's just a short little vacation. So I told her that's one of the ways we're dealing with my mom. So it's,
Sure.
yeah. So
Well,
anyway,
thank you for your time.
thank you. Thank you so much. And it was a pleasure getting to know all you guys, and I look to meeting you in person.
Okay, thank you.
Take good care. Bye-bye.
Uh-huh. Okay, so we can move on. Actually, I think it was good we had her on today, and it sets it up for her to come back, and we've got some topics identified in different things like that. So we can jump back up under new business, and there on the list are the plan of work was a review item for today, and so Ken and Regina sent that out to us, a draft on that. So do you want to have any discussion on that?
Dr. Salter,
Yes.
how have we previously prioritized work plans?
So I've only been on the committee, but in the time that I've been on it, we don't necessarily prioritize it as much as we come up with topics that we think need to be addressed, that we should become engaged in. So, obviously, after we sort of those identified, the group as a whole, as we make plans for future meetings and prioritize what we want to move up.
Okay, do we limit it to a certain number of things so
No,
that we can?
no, we haven't limited it to a certain number.
So I've got on the screen the draft, that you have, and typically we'll take last year's and use that as a base to work off of. The first page, just to kind of run through how it's set up, the first page is major accomplishments. The first one is establishing the actual work plan of last year, so that's just copied there, right, that you see right there. And then the second page of accomplishments is sort of a rundown of the meetings and the discussions that happened over the last fiscal year. And that's this list here that we've gone back through the minutes and agendas and put together. And so starting here, this is up for committee review, is that, you check the accuracy or add something if it's been missed. And then on the third page is the goals and objectives that were adopted last year that can now be revised, updated, changed, as the committee wants to list their goals and objectives for the upcoming fiscal year. So this is the starting point for whatever the committee wants to look toward doing. They can amend this list, change it, subtract, add.
How is this actually physically presented to the board?
I mean, typically the chair will do that. Staff, once it's approved, and, as we expect in September, that the committee can have an opportunity at that meeting, September 21st, to approve it, then staff will, either make it available, put it on a county commission agenda for their information. But typically the chair, if the chair wants to, can make a short presentation to the board. That's how it's been done in the past. It's not required, but.
Right. I think a lot of times they actually did make a very short It has to be very short.
It is, and we, you know, I mean, essentially, we have sort of a presentation, you know, template that can be reused and just, you know, modified for the current, that staff puts together, and then the chair can actually present that to the board.
And the thing that's critical on this is the timing, because just to make clear, the county's fiscal year starts October 1. So, since we're gonna have this little couple-month break, if we've got stuff we wanna get out there and start identifying, we can identify it, but then in that September meeting, we'll need to get it approved. Obviously, my experience is you guys go back through the minutes of the meetings, what we accomplished, what topics we covered and stuff like that, so that tends to be pretty accurate. So if we concentrate on the last part. The only thing I'm wondering, and I'm just thinking out loud as I was looking through this, it seems to me with other groups that I've worked with historically over time, when they look at a work plan, they're looking at a 3-point plan or a 5-point plan with some subtopics. So I started to try to think about what we've heard this year and what our issues are out there. I did some looking at what's identified as real issues at the national level as well as in Florida. And I just wonder if we would have any benefit of maybe focusing this around a theme of 3 things we're gonna cover next year, which has a bunch of topics under it. But, you know, and so one that I just come up with, and it's probably because I watched some of the board meeting when they decided not to go ahead with the purchase of the Fellowship Church. But one of the issues that they're looking at is the delivery of services in rural and our smaller cities, which relates somewhat to your question. It covers the road question. So I thought, well, the health and service delivery in the rural and unincorporated area of Alachua County could be one leg. Broadband, that's gonna be a huge issue. We touch base on it, but I don't think we've got the information we need to even do anything. And the other one is, I think this whole area of rural area economic development. So that's got the transportation. So I just wondering if, you know, is there a 3-point, a 5-point plan with some subtopics that we plan our meetings around next year? But that's just me thinking out loud. Be interested to hear what others are thinking.
I think the emergency response system for the rural areas probably be a big deal too, you know, for, as he was saying, like, far as with communication and, far as like with, as the guy was saying, with, rescue, police department, you know, sheriff or whoever, you know, covering that area.
Okay, and I don't want to interrupt you, Mr. Baines, but everybody help me because I lose track a little bit. So we had several meetings last year or the year before when they were replacing their emergency response system, and we had the fire department and all that in. So were you on the committee when we went through all that? So, do you remember that?
Oh, yeah. We had the chief
So
come.
we spent some time on that. It might be good. Is there any way, as we've had people come on, that we can somehow help them reflect back over the last 2 or 3 years on what we sort of covered and who came in? I mean, they see this now for what we sort of did last year, but I think it might be good to give, since we have so many new members, give a little bit of a historical perspective.
Well, I mean, every year, the work plan has essentially that list of presentations that the committee saw, so that's a reference.
Right, but I'm thinking that we've got, Ms. Werner, Mr. Shaw, James, who's on just real short time. We've got Mr. Baines, who's not been on a long time. Cindy's been here for a while. Larry's been here for a while. I've been here a little while.
I'm not sure.
What about if we have like, obviously the minutes were published, so I did look through some of the minutes before coming, but, or like before being voted, I guess, but, I wonder if there could be an onboarding package, that goes back, you know, however many, because I only looked at the last year's minutes, which is useful, but, that's a lot of work. I would be willing to do that work, to like, work. I think there's also a county initiative where it just has kind of like county civic education course where they like go through all the services that are provided and how they intermingle and what jurisdictions, they have. So, yeah, I guess maybe there could be some form of, for us to get familiar, but I completely 100% agree that a strategy would be nice to have rather than just kind of each meeting deciding what we want to do the next meeting.
And
Cindy?
just on the emergency response fire rescue, we had the chief come in and he talked about what they were proposing, and I believe something recently in the last several months has happened on that, but we never got the information on what happened, so. But I think something has happened, but I'm not sure what, with GRU and something,
Yeah,
so.
well, the problem, and I may be mixing them up, so, obviously, there's been this ongoing debate among, GRU and charges to counties and municipalities for using the radio system.
Yep.
And it's, as far as I know, that's still going. In fact, there was one of the smaller municipalities, it may have been Newberry, that was just having an issue with this. I believe the Alachua County response is you have to come up with something, and we're not paying any bill, we're not paying anything towards the bill you're even proposing until you come up with some alternative. But, you know, it's a good point. We have some of the stuff, and I wanna say we had them in twice.
I think
At
so.
least, because we had them come in and talk about what they were doing, and then we had to come in and have them talk about what they found out and what they were
Yeah.
going to propose.
Yep.
But I think it's hard for people who haven't been on the committee for a 3 or 5 year period to pick up on some of the stuff that we've talked about.
Well, I mean, we can get those previous work plans that would at least have those histories of presentations that the committee heard. Would that help? Is that?
Yeah, so, and I don't wanna pass it off on just to James, but if she's interested in that, if, you know, if we could do, and I'm just pulling this out of my head, but if you could give her that summary sheet of what was accomplished and who came in and talked to them for the last, say, 4 years, 17 through 21.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, for example, like I've got them in my notebook here, because I just keep them. It's like all these past work plans, but they all have that list of presentations that the committee discussed and heard every year.
And of course, a lot of time was spent on the, county fair and equestrian center.
Yeah, yeah, but
That's been a long,
that about the fairground development project.
we've been talking about that since I've been on this board in '04, I believe.
so it's on the list for the goals and objectives for 21-22. Is it possible to be crossed off? Or is there ongoing stuff that we would need to discuss?
Well, yeah, I mean, that's part of the process, is looking to see what's been
Yeah.
accomplished, what doesn't need to be worked on anymore, and what.
Yeah.
I think we'll close it out this year, well, hopefully.
That was one of my questions is, we said work with the city of Newberry County, et cetera, but where are we basically concluding those efforts?
Yeah, I think by the end of this I hope by September 30th, we're done with that issue.
Maybe you should be the one who presses this.
One other question that
Sure.
I had, it doesn't relate to those objectives, but we're talking about the, Alachua County Forever properties. And I don't know, have we ever gotten a list, is there a list of all the properties and what the status is? I think that would be interesting to see.
There is a list. And to tap into what he said, conservation easements on rural lands, we've had a talk years ago, but I don't think Charlie Howder from conservation, or the lands and Conservation Alachua County Conservation Trust has talked to us about that in a while. I don't think since Charlie's been here.
Yeah.
Now, I know before Charlie was here, and I can't remember his name, came and talked to us, but Charlie would be a good one to talk about that. 'Cause I wrote that, I wrote conservation easements on rural lands, 'cause we've got a lot of rural, family farms that look at that. And sometimes there's issues within Alachua County with codes and policies that may or may not allow them to continue doing exactly what they've been doing in the past. So that might be something, and Charlie's department would be the one, same department.
Yeah, Winston Rushing and the Farm Bureau were quite interested in that area.
So with that being said, before we cross them off, we should find a conclusion of what happened before we cross them off, or no, just cross them off. Because I know you said that, you don't know what the conclusion was about with the rescue, but you said you didn't know what the conclusion was about the easement, so I was just kind of wondering if we should cross them out before we know what happened with them. Or if y'all already know, then
Maybe we could do some homework and each person takes on a topic and we give a report in September since we have this time.
Well, if we do it in September, it could be a long meeting if we don't make a little bit of headway today, especially if we're gonna do that and try to see if Commissioner, Alford will come back, since she seemed positive on that. And I just wanna say, I think it's fair to say that, the informal feedback that county staff got on the Springs County meeting was very positive in terms of the committee's professionalism and topics they brought up and stuff like that. And I think that's what we do.
So, I just shared that the topics list that was done in December, so, I mean, maybe there's some overlap here that the committee identified. For example, because you may remember that this ACF topic was on here, identified, as a topic of interest. So, I mean, maybe there's some overlap with what the committee did a few months ago and what they're interested in adding to their goal list for the upcoming year. It's maybe one place to draw from.
Well, and I sort of looked at this, but you know, a lot of this, and I'll just give you an example. So, I mean, I think we paint with a broad brush and our umbrella can cover stuff, but, you know, conservation easements can be part of a rural development, issue, economic development in rural areas. Sustainable food and local foods is part of an economic and development area. And, you know, I think if we can come up with the concepts, and, you know, what got me on the health and service delivery is, the county's Department of Health, you know, obviously, the High Springs area identified that as an urgent need out there. There's been reports come out today, so, you know, the more rural the areas, the less progress they're making on the COVID type issue in terms of vaccinations and stuff. So, you know, I think if we could come up with those 3 or 4 broad things, then a lot of stuff we can plug in there. And we don't have to go into a super amount of detail at this point.
Would it be possible that you could give us that broad outline and maybe get it distributed out before our September meeting so we can have a chance to look at it?
Yeah, I just don't know if I've got the right topics, because, you know, broadband can be grouped under economic development too. But, you know, I don't know if health, I was trying to come up with those 3 overarching type things. I come up with health and service delivery, okay? Roads could fall under that one. Roads could fall under economic development. You know, I think the whole concept of economic development is one that's really there. So if those were 2, what's the third one? Cindy?
What about, and I'm not sure how to word this, but what about policies that relate to rural areas? And that can affect what I just talked about, conservation, and I don't know how to state that, but, we need to make sure we stay abreast of policies and procedures that Alachua County puts in place that may or may not hinder our agriculture and our rural communities.
Well, and that brought up another one that I was thinking about with the change in the precedent. All the state ag agencies, all the federal ag agencies in Florida is under new leadership now. They may not have that person identified, but what we heard from Phil Leary on rural development last year
He's
is off the table.
Yep.
You know, so it's somebody else.
Right.
And we could spend 2 meetings just getting those federal people back in and where the programs are and where they're placing their emphasis and stuff like that. But
Regulatory policies, something that affect our rural areas. I'm not sure that falls under economic or health and safety, so I don't know.
Try to read that policy, rural policy concerns.
There you go.
So-
Regulatory policy concerns.
could we, with the group, then, maybe we use, if we use the 3-tier umbrella, could be economic development, state and federal policies affecting rural areas, and health and service delivery in rural areas. Would that be a 3-prong approach, and then we can start fitting stuff under it?
I think that's good.
So you think like emergency responses can go under the health and services?
It would, health and service delivery, that's where it would go.
Really anything, well, yeah, anything infrastructure could go in all three of these things.
And if there's, so I'm gonna take advantage of Jane's offer. If she wants to work with me and we can get one other person to sort of brainstorm on this and then we can get that to Ken. And then if we need to have a little short phone conversation or something and come back with a more developed plan, does that sound
So
reasonable?
would that be, you're talking about before September,
Yeah,
so would that be some sort of a subcommittee meeting?
yes.
We'd have to do a public notice
Yeah.
and have it sunshine.
So the question I have is if each person sort of does it independently and we provide it to you as staff, I think we avoid that.
Right.
But if you incorporate it, saying based on the input I got, then you could get back with us if we needed to and have a subcommittee.
Yeah, so like
Meeting.
I could do maybe like economic development, so it's gonna be
Or you can do it for each of the 3 topics, and then Ken can see where the common ground is and merge it.
So you're saying, Ken, that them two could, like collaborate, because it's your sunshine law, like if she do it by herself and then send it to him, then that's okay. No, I'm saying it wrong?
But if she does it, I do it, say Cindy's the 3rd person, Larry's the 3rd person, everybody says it independently, he summarizes it, we haven't talked among each other about what the topics are, the importance and stuff, he summarizes it.
And I wonder if we could make it easy on you by possibly coming up with like a Google form or something that would collate it so that you can really easily cross-check it. I don't know if you like have a favorite computer program for doing that sort of like Venn diagram, formatting, but
I don't, but,
Excel works well too.
Candace.
Oh,
I get the idea that, the members would send me things over the next month or 2, file, then have this subcommittee meeting before September, right?
So the first thing, I think the first step in the process is, can we agree on this umbrella concept where the 3 legs of the stool are rural, economic development, rural, state, and federal programs and policies, and rural health and service delivery issues.
I think Candace wanted to comment on that.
Candace?
I am having a very intense thunderstorm where I live, and so I'm gonna have to go. I want to turn off all my electronics. It's really a lot of lightning and thunder. My power's going on and off. So see you guys in September.
Okay, thank you.
We're all fixing to get wet.
Yeah, we are.
Getting out of here.
Do you
want
need a motion?
Yeah, I think we need to do a motion. If,
Go ahead.
We both said it. I move that we accept these three main topics: health and safety delivery, health and service delivery, rural economic development, and rural policy concerns,
as our umbrella
as our umbrella
program and
for
effort.
you all, as an umbrella for efforts for next year, and then for you all to come up with those individual, subject areas and send those to Ken.
I'll second that.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded that we use these three topic areas for our programming effort next year. They're on the screen. Is there any discussion?
Yes.
Yes.
Who exactly is you all? Is it you?
No,
Not me.
we're gonna have to appoint a subcommittee,
Okay.
so,
You want me to amend
It
it?
should be a committee of the whole.
well, I think that's what it becomes when we come back to our September meeting to adopt it.
Can we just say that Dr. Clauser, James, and Mr. Hall's gonna
Thank you.
Then
talk to Ken?
Well, we'll have to have an advertised meeting, and we can't do it without it being publicly noticed. The new members can't talk to each other.
No, they're not
Right,
gonna talk.
we're not gonna talk.
They're gonna send it to you.
To send the material.
Yes, to
Right.
send the material
Yeah,
to you.
right. So there wouldn't be another meeting of any members until September.
Right.
Okay. So,
Unless it's necessary, you say, this is such a disaster, I can't make heads or tails out of it. And then we'll have to have a subcommittee meeting. So, I guess, can we do it as, one other way to do this, so we don't really have to appoint one, is, does anyone volunteer to be on this? Besides James and me? Somebody else wanna volunteer?
I'll do it.
Okay, Mr. Salvin? Okay, anybody else? Okay, so, we'll have, an independent, group working on the concepts, with no conversation, sending the information to you. And let me ask the question, because if we don't put sort of a time frame on this, it's gonna be last second. So, my guess is we should have this to you by early August. Is that right?
that would be good, and then it can be prepared by the first of September, basically.
And if we did need to have a little bit of a meeting because it was such a disaster, we have a little bit of time before September, but it gives you some time to put it together as well.
Right, so, the members that are gonna work on this need any information from staff to be working on it?
Well, I think it would be good, especially since Mr. Salva and, James are, new, that if you've got the summaries over the last 4 years of the work plan and
We've got 'em
accomplishments,
all the way back to the beginning.
send them to, just send them to me too. Just
Yeah.
send all that, all three of us, so we're all, at least we're consistent for 4 years.
Yeah, okay.
And so exactly what, like, we just compiling to put what up under those three categories?
Yeah, we'll put the issues that we're going to look at, that's gonna identify the people for programs, so like, under, health and service delivery, that might be one, or let's say rural policy concerns. One big area under there is a potential, is that new federal agency heads in the state of Florida for rural policy
Yeah, I
come to the
understand that
committee.
part. I'm saying, like, when we come back together in September, we can still tweak it or?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. It's just give you a more draft out thing, we'll tweak that. We'll only have two focuses on the September meeting if possible, if it's okay with the committee. One is, final adoption of the work plan. And if Commissioner Alford comes back, I say we take her up on her offer. Is there any disagreement with that?
I think what you're really trying to do is put together a rough draft of what would be done in a final form to go to the county commission.
Yeah, there's no action until the committee takes action in September.
Yeah.
So just to be clear, I mean, and just to clarify, we're not, as in the past, we would just work off of this past list, but it sounds like the committee is wanting to do a more comprehensive type.
Well, I think it's just good, since we have some relatively new committee members, that they have longer history than the 2 years you gave them in the book or the previous year in the book and what you're showing them right now, if that's not problematic for you time-wise.
But it sounds like y'all saying two different things, and I'm just, for clarity, because it sounds like what she was saying is basically just to educate the group of what happened versus this is the list that was worked on last year. So it's kind of like, are we gonna pull stuff that happened 4 years ago back and put it back on the list? Is that what we do?
That could be a potential. If we don't think the emergency response been solved, or there's a problem on it, or we can't get the answer to a question, like if Cindy's thing was a question today, if we can't get that, then we have under health and service delivery going back and including, emergency response in rural areas, again.
Okay, that's what we do, add me on.
Okay, so four people will send that stuff to those 4 people, and then by August 1st, they should send you any comments they have under the 3 umbrella parts, and hopefully you can make heads or tails out of it.
So the 4 are you, James Longenecker, Juan Salva, and Mr. Hall?
Mr. Barnes,
Mr. Bain?
Bain.
Okay. Okay. Okay, so I'll send those work plans to the 4.
Okay, and remind them on that August 1 deadline to have information back to you.
And then just to make, clarity, is there, 4 years can be a lot of stuff, is there a certain amount, a certain, number per, category, or?
No, I think we put it in there, we could always continue it, or we don't put it on the list, it's the prioritization, if we have something else. And it'll also build a list of things that maybe we can wipe off the list, or we want to carry forward, or plan future. I think the reality of the situation is, I'm assuming we should plan from September, or from October 1 of this year until September of 2022, we'll have about 8 meetings, okay? And so whatever we're gonna do is gonna get done in those 8 meetings.
Question.
Yes.
Question, I'm ready to vote. We haven't voted yet.
Okay, any other discussion? Okay, do you wanna restate it, or you wanna have Regina try to restate it, or Kim?
Whoever has it.
So the motion was to accept those 3 topics, health and service delivery, rural economic development, rural policy concerns, as an umbrella program, and have the members of the committee, or the 4 members, right?
Well, see, I don't think we need it, since we're not having conversation. I think we can stop it with this. And then there's gonna be feedback provided to you under these topics that you'll accumulate for us. I don't know.
I don't think we need to put a committee in the, motion.
So the committee, the motions for the committee to accept those 3 topics as an umbrella program, and the committee members come up with individual subject areas under those topics and send it to staff.
Right.
Point of clarification, I think it's rural health and service delivery.
Yeah, rural would probably needs to go in there since we started the others.
Call the question.
Sure. Okay, the question's been called. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same sign. That motion passes. Okay, the next, item then is old business. And so one thing we should try to do is have at least a brief follow-up. So I'm interested in the input you might have, and I'm gonna try to save the comments I have, related to it until everybody's had a chance to share. James?
James Longenecker. I think that, the point that Mr. Hall made about figuring out how we can make the democratic structures of the existing county work so that rural residents feel better represented, could be something that this committee could actually act on. Otherwise, I feel like the Springs County question kind of, I just don't know what other kind of action items we could have around Springs County. So we kind of know their grievances, and now I feel like that is the predominant one that, constituents don't feel like they're being listened to. So if voting policy can change that, then maybe that would be good.
Okay, other comments?
I thought what Mr. Hall presented, that committee before had talked about single-member districts. The previous chairman made a presentation
We
2
sent
years
in the
ago
actual,
to the commission.
yeah, when they did the charter review.
Send it back.
Well, you're only gonna be able to do that
For
in
10
charter
years.
reviews, and so you're sort of stuck 10 years out
9
now.
years from now.
Yeah.
Okay. But a reminder.
I think the areas that maybe we as a committee would consider, sending our concerns or requests to the county commission would be, the 3 areas. One, as Tim mentioned, is the real estate tax rates in the county. I don't know what could be done about that, because we do have so much land that's off the tax roll.
And we have a lot of ag land which has reduced.
Ag land, you've got a lot of government facility properties, all of those are not taxable. That is one of the major concerns. We do have high rates. I can personally vouch for that, having moved here from other counties. The second issue was the roads or infrastructure in the rural area that don't seem to get, attention, and I think Commissioner Alford discussed that, and how much impact she'll have with the commission on that, I don't know. And of course, the third area was the representation, the lack of, districting alignment so that the residents in the county, rural areas felt that they actually had somebody on the county commission that was speaking on their behalf. The way the districts are drawn now, the city of Gainesville pretty much determines who the elected officials are in Alachua County. Those are, as I see, were the three broad areas that, I don't know if the county commission could address redistricting without it being every 10 years, if that's an issue that could be brought up in the interim as a ballot initiative, or if that has to go through the Charter Review Commission.
Yeah, I'd have to look back at the charter. Do you know, Ken? I have a feeling that the single districts elected at large is part of the charter.
It's part of the charter.
So that could only be changed. I guess the commission might be able to consider of calling a special ballot request, but I think that's very unusual, and they put that 10-year, review on the charter commission.
I think, you was done? I mean, for me, it's already seemed like, you know, they have already been, whether it's called Spring County, it's already been some kind of, separate county issue when you look at, the west of Gainesville and the east of Gainesville, and where the funds are going. So it's already been a division. And so now they're saying, well, we want to put it in black and white, to divide. And, I don't spoke with city commissioners before, you know, even when I was in college, I did a report on this. And they try to go back to segregation, basically. And, you know, I'm all fine and well with segregation, long as you give us the same tools. If you're not gonna give one side the same tools as the other side, then it's unfair. We're back to square one. And so, if you're not gonna get the east side of Gainesville the same, funds that you're gonna give the west side of Gainesville, or the same benefits of the West Gainesville, or the same tax breaks of West Gainesville, then we back into square one. And, you know, I know a lot of people feel like Trump was dividing the country. Well, he's not. We're dividing the country, and starting by county, you know, that's where it started at locally. And, to me, this is a terrible idea.
Other input?
I do agree with one thought. I do agree with him. It almost seems like it's not a divide, it's not a discussion of city of Gainesville versus rural. It's really like the western side of Gainesville, because there's rural areas in the east side, but that seems to be lost in this movement. It seems to be more particular rural area in the west side of Gainesville that wants a particular resource to occur. I don't know if this committee can do that, can address that in a holistic way, because again, I think east side of the county seems to be forgotten, like the rural areas over there, but, other than the single member district, which seemed to be the point of the presentation, I don't know how we can provide voice to the board, as to what, because I don't think it's a rural concern, it's more like just 3 or 4 cities in the western side of the river that happen to be rural want this particular outcome.
I think the commission has made headway, if we can urge them to emphasize more, taking the meetings to the different town commissions, Newberry, Alachua, High Springs, Hawthorne.
It's a good idea.
They do meetings in the outer
Yeah.
communities, but I don't know how.
But if they
often.
really formalize that and emphasize that more, I think it's a very good step.
Seeing their constituents.
Yeah, in fact, I think just in the last couple of weeks, they've done Micanopy and
Right.
Hawthorne, they do
Hawthorne, yeah.
joint council, and I think.
But they've been doing it by Zoom.
Alachua. Mhm.
Yeah, but they're doing it by.
Well, like I said, you're gonna give, the east side the same resources, the tax breaks and everything that, the reason that they saying, hey, let's do a Spring County idea, for the reasoning that they saying, because of the tax breaks and everything, okay, we'll do that on the same, because we see the east side of town with taxes are going way up, you know. Houses that are half of the size on the west side, the taxes are almost the same. And, you know, seeing that, if, you know, let's distribute the wealth, so to speak, like we was talking about with the gas tax. The gas tax, as they said, go around 301, you know, that include Hawthorne, Newberry, all these different places. Let's distribute, the money, you know, not only as far as gas tax, but the same resources. Let's give the east side the same resources that we give in the west side. You know, we see that the county is willing to go Newberry, Jonesville to build, but they, you know, I remember, and that's something, I don't know what happened to, it was the Go Green or something where they were supposed to build out of Hawthorne, and I don't know if that's something still in the plan or if it's still coming, but we haven't heard anything else about it. You know, they're supposed to come down Hawthorne Road, build out there. They was talking about, you know, this big plan.
Was that part of Weyerhaeuser's?
Yeah.
That was the Plum Creek project.
Yeah, the Plum Creek project, you know, stuff like that, but but we haven't, you know, it's just like the east side is just pretty much forgot about.
Well, what happened with, I was gonna say, what happened with Palm Creek, the county wouldn't even send it to the state for consideration.
Exactly, that's what I'm saying. But they were saying something on the west side, it would fly to the state. And that's what I'm saying, by having the same resources and having the same energy for the east side of Gainesville as the west side of Gainesville.
And so this seems to be really just an economic development discussion in a certain way, because there are a bunch of different markets at play with, like, where development happens, right? So much of what's happening on the west side of Gainesville is just a real estate market, and people wanna live in different places for different reasons, but.
No, I'm not saying where people live, because you have people, you know, they just said that they live on the east side of Gainesville, so.
Yeah,
It's not, to me, it's more so of the zoning, how they zone, how with the land, conservation, where certain areas you can't build, the way that the powers that be has set it up to alienate East Gainesville. It's set up that way to be alienated, you know, far as what you can do. It's not even a bank on the east side of Gainesville.
So what's funny, I was chuckling, I don't want anybody to get the wrong impression, but I'm an applied economist by training. So I've done lots of presentations on economic development, and I've jokingly told tons of small towns and stuff, if they want to figure out how the economic development, all they do is they get them to build the bypass on the interstate around the other side of town. Because when 441, they decide to go west, everything's gone west. If they flipped that around and they moved over to the east, everything would go east. So, you know, that's why I was sort of chuckling while you guys were talking, is it's one of those things that economic development is so strange and it's pulled by so many things. But being able to pull those people off the interstate makes a world of difference, because there's a lot of cars that go up and down I-75. So let me give you the first impression I have. And to me, I didn't think there was much the committee could do or even suggest. The thing that was discouraging to me personally was that I didn't get the sense after this presentation that this was being driven by an overreaching desire of people in rural areas of Alachua County, or even people on the west side of the interstate in rural areas of Alachua County wanting it. And that's not the approach they're going to take. What I heard was the approach is, all we have to do is convince Commissioner Chestnut, Commissioner Clemens, Senator Perry, and I always forget the third lady's name. She's the other representative that represents part of Gainesville. We convince those three, then we think it'll sell through the legislature without a problem. Okay? So it wasn't the core group of movement in Alachua County to do that.
I think that's why they're doing the petition drive, to show the number of people who are supporting it. I think that's where they're.
Well, I think it is, but their numbers are so small. And I understand they've got another year to go based on the timeline they gave us. And then the other thing I found is I went back, and if you want to look it up, you can drive yourself crazy, go to Florida Tax Watch. They do a comparison of county by county on taxes, sources of funds, municipalities, property taxes, all that. You put it on a per capita basis, and almost all those taxes I went through, there wasn't much difference per capita between Alachua County and Tallahassee that appeared in the total numbers. And then the other thing that struck me, I went back and looked at the roads. And Commissioner Alford's numbers she came up with today were pretty small, but look at District 2. I think Alachua County's in District 2 for the road district.
Yeah.
And you look at unpaved roads, paved roads, which are city and which are county, and it's the unpaved and county roads in Alachua County are humongous. And, you know, I mean, we're a big county, and our ag community's out in those areas, so they needed those roads. But, I mean, we've got tons of roads that are county responsibility that aren't even paved.
So I did similar research with the tax, thing, and the other thing that I found, especially with regards to the petition, is, I looked at spring I really wish that the PowerPoint would be available to like public, because there's really not much content there. So little content is there that I have friends who don't even know what Springs County is, and I called up and they like Springs County, I think because they think it's a tourism, or I know, it's because they thought it was a tourism, like marketing scheme, to be like, we are Springs County, we have, you know, these natural wonders, you don't have to go to the beach, you can go to the springs. And so I feel like it's really like, there were 10 people I called who were like, oh, no, I just liked it on Facebook. So I wonder, I wonder how much, exactly like Dr. Clyde was saying, I wonder how much it is, you know, I don't know, like some other kind of marketing, idea, and how much it is, a rural concern.
Well, a lot can be done, but, you know, if we're looking at a county with a population of 270,000 plus, and we get 15 or 20,000 people to sign a petition, but, you know, and that's why I asked that question. I didn't make it that direct, but basically, the response I heard, and you guys can tell me if I was wrong, is, no, all we have to do is get the local representatives to do it, and we're concentrating on Clements and Perry, and if we do that, we think it'll sail through the legislature and just happen.
Well, and I was gonna say, that was the thing that struck me, is there seemed to be no concern about, well, it doesn't really matter, we don't need any citizen agreement to do this, we can just do this. I'm like, yeah, that's fine.
Well, those are elected officials, and their actions are reviewed, every year or so at the polls.
And there are term limits, but it's not gonna happen before their timeline they have.
But the area that they're talking about is half of Gainesville.
Yeah, 34th Street.
And the entire, I mean, East Gainesville will have no hospital, right? It's everything, 34th Street is the dividing line, and all of the medical facilities are west of it.
Well, Shanda's,
Yeah.
34th Street.
Kansas, yes, that's right, University, but I don't deal with Shannon, so.
Yeah,
that
but
was
I
my
mean, it would be a
question.
logistical nightmare,
Yeah.
and Steve, like, just thinking, the main point is taxes, and, we asked a few questions about how that could work, because there are so many services that are just a baseline foundation for the society that we've built, that, it doesn't seem like taxes would be, I mean, there is a lot of budgeting and reallocating of funds that are possible, but it doesn't, when looking at the redundancies of having to create another school board, fire department, and all of that, it doesn't, yeah, I don't know much.
And then when we start talking about historical and Gainesville, when we start talking about general Gaines, we start talking about Hale Plantation, start talking about Hall's Creek, and what it really was Hale Plantation was a cotton field. And we start talking about Hall's Creek, you know, the city has been divided. And so when we talk about history, we really got to know the history of Gainesville and know where the name Gaines came from General Gaines, you know, and understand that like, to me, it's like, I mean, it's like I said, I don't mind if it seemed like they wanna not, you know, these group of people, I don't know who they are. I wasn't here at the presentation, but to bring a suggestion like this, you ready to dig up old wounds. And so for me to hear like those that lived in Gainesville hear about 13th Street and how the University of Florida was all male school, and like if you really want to do your history in Gainesville, do your history. That's all I can say.
Gentlemen, it's 6 o'clock. We've been here 2 hours.
That's right, we should, and this is the last item unless there's other comments we want to make, and it sounds to me like there's not much more can be done. Correct? Okay, any committee member want to make a last comment? And I still show no general public on? so don't need to ask that. Motion to adjourn would be appropriate.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Or one of, yeah, all made